forbidden and banned, the bane of bureaucrats, exposing mainstream media's weapons of mass distraction.
Flying under the radar and dropping truth bombs on tyranny.
It's Liberty Now.
I am caffeinated up and ready to go. Kia ora, hello, and welcome to Liberty Now, recorded from Christchurch, New Zealand. Down under, down under. This is the podcast for discerning minds and common sense. We'll look beyond the headlines and false narratives of the dying, corrupt legacy media. We seek the truth, and guess what? We can think for ourselves. Please be sure to subscribe to this show on your favorite podcast player app, and don't worry about taking notes while you listen. We'll have all the files, links, and show notes at libertynow.com. All right, I'm excited to talk to my guest today, a fellow patriot and American. His name is Tony L. And Tony is a history lover who's never lost his curiosity or fear of asking why. His article, What Happened to America's Independence, was published in the July 2010 Christian Voice magazine. And he is the creator of the Project Third Eye Opened online commentary news blog. So I'll be really interested to talk to him about what's been going on back in our home, back in the U.S., and talking about, we're going to talk a lot about race relations as well, which is a really hot topic now, eh? But Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you inviting me. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be in front of you, be in front of your guests, and so you were down there doing all the COVID craziness.
Yeah.
You got some stories of your own.
Oh yeah. We could talk about that too.
I was wondering where you were from, because you saying like you wasn't here, but New Zealand, COVID.
Yeah. It wasn't as bad as Australia, but boy, we had some tyrants here, boy.
I mean, since you're down under, definitely, like I said, very, very interesting. Been for 10 years, so you giving up on American soil, or you gonna stay down there?
Yeah, I haven't completely given up. We just we wanted to get away from Seattle, but for
I don't blame you for that. Yeah, I don't blame you for Seattle. Yeah, I that.
but we also wanted to, have an adventure and try living and working abroad. There's also the sort of the travel bug in us that we wanted to see, another country. But boy, we've loved it here so much. We're just probably not going to move back in any time soon. But yeah.
You'll take your time, huh?
Yeah, take our time. Yeah. But one of these days, just maybe to a different part of the country, if and when we do.
Yeah,
we love to go back and visit. And America's huge, man. It's what's that?
So try the South.
Oh man,
we're still free
the
down
South.
here.
You know what? Yeah, I did spend some time in Florida. I haven't been in too many other southern states, but I went to dive school there when I was in the Navy, and Florida was awesome. Loved it there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and, I mean, we don't really consider Florida to be the South, though, but I guess geographically.
Yeah, geographically, but not the real South, eh?
Exactly.
And what state did you grow up in, Tony?
Well, my dad was in the military, so I didn't grow up in any one particular state, thank God. I mean, I love the South, but I'm very fortunate that I wasn't raised here in the South, so I was able to, like you, be in the military, travel and see different countries, cultures, points of views. And like you, I've just been on my own a year or so in Canada, Vancouver. I did get to ask you. I mean, Canada is kind of like America, but it is still a different country, different culture. They're doing things, Democrat socialism. So it's definitely good to see how that other side works. And that's crazy. I mean, 75% tax on the individual, stuff like that. Crazy.
Yeah.
They make it happen, but now you got Trudeau and I love America.
Yeah. Wow. So, since you're there, recent headlines, I'm hearing that Canada is doing tell me if this is right or wrong, but a gun confiscation or mass registration? What's going on there with the firearms?
Well, it's interesting because back in the 1998, when I was up there, they were trying to do that up there. So they've been having a bird in the saddle trying to confiscate guns for quite some time. I don't know how far they would get this time. Again, I'm not really up on that, but people change and people get more complacent. And I believe when you're in a culture such as that where you surrender so much to the government, but the fact that what happened during COVID, people like, hey, a lot of people saw like y'all going too far. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it sure will. I'm a big believer in Second Amendment rights, and it's different for me. I suppose we grew up in a, as kids over in Spokane, Washington, it's a more conservative part of the country, or at least of the state for sure. It's very different from Seattle.
Sure.
And, when I was a kid, we'd go to school and kids would be like on their lunch break, hey, you want to come out and see my new, my 30-06, for hunting, going out with my grandpa this weekend. And they'd have the gun racks on the back of their truck on school property, and they'd go, show off their guns. And, we never had any school shootings or anything like that. I mean, we had common sense,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would think about bringing a gun actually into the school.
Well, not just that, we had common sense, but we also had fathers in the home.
Yes.
That would get at you for being a knucklehead, so that was a bigger fear for me anyway than whatever the culture outside could do. And I think that's the biggest thing that's been lost in our culture is the masculinity of the father, the home disciplinarian. Never mind what the police would do or government would do. Your father would get to you first.
Yeah. Boy, that's a fact. And man, I don't know if, I used to say my dad was so strict, but man, looking back on some of the crap I tried to pull, I'm lucky to be alive. And if my dad hadn't been there to sort of straighten me out, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, boy, I think you really nailed it on the head. That's one of the biggest things that, if we want to address a lot of these problems, a 2-parent home.
Everything starts with
dad in that. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So Tony, talking about like some of the issues, race relations in the U.S., it seems to me like it's gotten worse or it's been projected to be worse in the last, 10, 15 years, progressively worse, which seems backwards. Like to me as a kid, growing up in the 60s and 70s, race relations were better, at least in the Northwest where I'm from. And, I would get a hiding if I told any racist jokes or anything when I was a kid. We weren't liberal. We were conservatives, I think. But I don't get it. What, since the days of MLK, do you think it's gotten worse or better lately?
Well, I mean, if you check that in my articles or writing, I have a very contrarian point of view when it comes to race relations in America, and that's what intrigued me growing up, was asking the question, why were blacks and whites not getting along more from the sense of whites to blacks, not so much so blacks to whites. And I always saw that whites, particularly women, because I was for the women, so there was always like, they could date Mexican, they could date Asian, they could even date Arab, but don't date a black man. I'm like, wait, hold on. Did I lose something? Did we not fight them? And wasn't like a real serious thing?
Yeah.
And aren't we more akin to them than any of those others? So like, what's really going on? So that brought me on the question, like, why? And, Atlanta, my move to Atlanta in the 80s, it really allowed me to really get more exposed to more radical, quote unquote, viewpoints. Like I had a stint with Nation of Islam. I got into a lot of diving into different things and different perspectives, points of view, more Science Temple and all of that. But when you look at race, people want to say go back to the 1960s, and a lot of my video presentations, I said Black history is not just the 60s.
Right.
Black American history starts back 1600s, 1500s, 1300s, further. And in regards to America, you have to look at one, when you hear people such as Frederick Douglass should know a certain thing about our country and our founders. He saw the Constitution as a glorious liberty document.
Mm-hmm.
So when people want to call the United States as a racist country, I'm like, you haven't done your reading or education.
Yeah, that's the thing. People
MLK, you have to look at which MLK are you talking about. You talking about the one who did "I Have a Dream" speech, or you talking about the one who did the speech in front of the sanitation workers in Memphis? Those are two totally different Martin Luther's. And then you got to look at why was Martin Luther King pushed in front of us and not Malcolm X? So those questions. And I really don't believe that MLK will be appreciated today. Everybody could love what they believe somebody could be. I mean, what's her name? What's his name? Marilyn Monroe. Her image has blossomed,
right,
a lot more than the actual Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
What we have in our minds as Marilyn Monroe is great, is grand, but from what I understand, she wasn't that great. I mean,
right.
Outside of having that little stint with some Kennedy boys, other than that, what's the claim to fame? It wasn't acting, So you got to look at that. I mean, MLK would not be appreciated today because it's a different time. Even back then, the majority of blacks were not with MLK at the beginning.
Really?
No. Well, I mean, like anything. I mean, when you look at our founders, not that many of them, colonials were supporting their founders at the beginning. You know, so it's many times in our history when we see things that are real serious, that changes a culture, it's not the majority who's behind it. A lot of the majority like the status quo. It's human nature,
Right. Well, even during the American Revolution, it was not the majority of the colonists who participated in the revolution. It was a very small percentage.
Very much so.
Something like 3% really were engaged in the.
So same thing with MLK, but you got to also look at when MLK went down, who picked up his flag? Not even his closest captains did.
Right.
So you got to look at that. I mean, his position was very, very obtuse to the status quo and to the power brokers, to the fact that nobody since then has picked up his flag.
Right. So fast forwarding to today, one of the questions you address is, what is your view of the quote Black American, or what do you think about the usage of the term African American?
Asinine.
What does that mean to you? Asinine?
Asinine.
You know what? And I agree. It's like, aren't we just Americans?
No, it's just, I mean,
how many African Americans are from Africa? That's what you would call somebody who's from there, right? But
yeah, exactly. I mean, let's start there. Yeah. Let's start there. And I mean, the Negro American history has been taken over by people who want to confuse and contort our history.
Yeah.
Our history is before history was written. But when you look at where we came from Negro, Afro-American to African-American,
Right.
And when you go back and you look at what was happening during the civil rights, nobody was trying to fight to sit next to a white person at a lunch counter. We wanted to be treated equally because we had Black Wall Street. We had meccas of Black power that surpassed white power economically in many cases.
Yeah, you know what? That's something they don't talk about either.
Yeah.
They had a much higher legitimacy rate.
Yes.
They had a super strong community.
Yes.
And then, so I have done my own reading on what the heck happened there. What does your reading of history tell you? Like, what happened to all that?
Democrats.
Yeah.
Democrats.
I know the party of the minorities, right? The Democrat. Boy, that's
Again,
like one of the greatest magic tricks in history.
Yes. You have said it. Magic is the word that I would use. I mean, Democrats, 1960s, and I went back in many of my publications. I go back to Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
Woodrow Wilson, he changed all of this. He erased Black history from the educational system. He erased Black history from books. He rewrote history to exclude Blacks. And during that time, another depression, Blacks came to him during the election period, said, we need your help to get the Klan off our backs, which the Democrat Party created. And he
right. That's
a movie, Birth of a Nation, showcased in the White House. So they came to him trying to get some redress to this for the Black vote. And of course, he said, you get me in, I'll handle it. Black said, he's our man. This is the 1930s. Of course, again, I think about that time as well, there was a battle between Booker T. Washington and W. Du Bois. W. Du Bois, of course, not American.
Yeah.
Not American. He's from the Caribbean.
Wow.
So he was for the masses or the smart elite to tell the masses what to do.
Right.
Want to independent and want to say, handle your money first, become strong economically. Then we go talk to them at the table. So then it'd be a one-to-one exchange. So when they went to Wilson and Wilson betrayed them, then that opened up everything to now when it came back around again, you had the 1960s or the Great Depression, the same thing happened again. So now you had that wave where Blacks are now voting for Democrats.
Well, and remember Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
Who probably had a hand in Kennedy's assassination.
Of course.
Not the only one, but he was no fan of Kennedy. There were a lot of groups that JFK pissed off. So I think they worked together to make sure he disappeared.
But Democrat Party coerced, controlled, lied, manipulated through economic persuasion. And you see that still resonating in the Black community today.
Yeah. And
anything that comes up where like Reagan wanted to reduce access to social welfare, basically, and Blacks hit the roof, and anything that is trying to get Blacks more independent, they have an automatic recoil against anything like that.
Well, and that was Lyndon Johnson. who said, we'll get these,
Yeah.
voting Democrat for the next 100 years because we're going to put them all on welfare.
But it started with Roosevelt. Roosevelt changed the culture of America forever, because before Roosevelt, Americans had a very independent, small government mindset.
Right.
Economic conditions during the Great Depression, Roosevelt changed all that. Then, of course, LBJ targeted, particularly in regards to the black family. I mean, look at the situation of the black family without looking at LBJ.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you also had, let's not forget, Margaret Sanger, the mother of abortion. And you probably looked at the statistics too. Black babies are disproportionately aborted more than anybody else. And where did she place the abortion clinics, the Planned Parenthood family planning clinics, in as close as she could to all the poorest areas and the concentrations of black neighborhoods?
And what party supports her more than any other party?
Democrat Party.
Democrat Party.
Yeah. I mean, it's so clear if you just will read a little bit of history.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, that is a lot of, these are deliberate actions that targeted the black community that you can blame for. Now we have, so much illegitimacy and single parent families, and, no wonder, you have the economic trouble that goes with it, and that hurts everybody.
Right, but when I ask people in my own community, name one thing the Democrat Party has done that economically benefited blacks in regards to economic freedom. I mean, you could go back to when you look at the so-called Reconstruction Act amendments, where you look at the 13th, 14th, and 16th, none of those were supported by Democrats.
Yeah.
None of them, but when you look at the actions, including that going forward, there's not one that I could point to that somebody could tell me to this point that they passed a law that was intended to economically free blacks.
Right.
Not one.
And also, going back to, the Democrat Party has never been on your side. Back to the Second Amendment, it was when the NRA was formed. I think the NRA was originally formed to ensure black people had Second Amendment rights to put guns in their hands. The organization that Democrats hate more than almost anything else, and yet they were the ones who were about independence and self-defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know that. But I mean, but the whole point, when you look at America and America and Black America, you can't have one without the other. You definitely can't have Black America you can't have America without Black America. You might have Black Americans without America, but you can't have America without Black Americans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Period. I mean, that's not racist or abolitory. That's just
no, that's facts. We're all part of each other's history. I mean, it's like, the melting pot.
Exactly.
America isn't any one culture or race.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, that's what made the country so attractive. So we
but that's
so many
why
people and so much opportunity.
Know that Achilles' heel is the race lie.
Yeah.
When you look at so-called slavery, they know that that's Achilles. But again, so people don't read, and you have that period with Woodrow Wilson. Slavery is not what is presented, and I think one of the cruelest presentations, unless you intended for this to be the reaction, was Roots. Roots was the first time in American history, and you don't look like that was older or younger than me. I'm 59.
Oh yeah, I'll be 59 in February.
Okay,
and, man, I remember when Roots came out. We were glued to the TV.
Right.
When it first came out.
I can remember my grandparents never said white man this or whatever. But as soon as Roots came, slave this and slave that, and it just has grown. Even though Ellis Haley has been debunked as far as that book and its grounding, but that has been like a hand grenade tossed into the middle of a room, and it just changed our culture, changed our relations. And then you have Obama come, and he just hopped on that. And
let's talk about that a little bit. Like I was, in fact, so I was so disgusted with the establishment, with the Bushes putting us into perpetual wars. You know, I mean, our family was traditionally Republican, but I'm more about the issues than the party. You know, screw the party. Let's talk about what really matters to us. I don't care what the person looks like. I don't care what party they're for. Let's talk about the issues, and are they going to follow through, and their integrity. And the Bushes had none of that. I knew they were like beginning to see their deep staters and in bed with the military industrial complex and taking the country into a really bad place. And so Obama comes along, this amazing guy, and I'm like, yes, he's saying all the right things. I'm like, I flipped to Democrat. I registered actually as a Democrat. I can't get myself off that list anymore, by the way. I still can't. But I was like, I joined the local delegates, and I actually was door knocking and everything to get that guy elected for Obama. And then after his first term, he didn't do any of what he said he was going to do. He turned out to be a traitor. And I feel like race relations have gotten worse since he got in. And especially after his second term, I saw how he was like pulling out all the stops, trying to create racial tension. And I know that's going to raise the hackles on a lot of people, especially on the left. But man, look at what he really did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have a blind spot, I guess, because I always showed contrast Republicans and Democrats to the father in the home and mother in the home. And with the children. Children always want cake and ice cream for breakfast.
Yeah.
But the father always says no.
Yeah.
They're the disciplinarian. So you had the Republicans as a disciplinarian, and then you had Democrats say you could have cake and ice cream for breakfast. Right. Everybody favors the Democrats because they let me stay up till 12 o'clock at night on a school night, you know.
Man, Tony,
and the Republicans do not. So that's why it's always just as we come into where you have women earning more money in economically. And you have women more empowered than they ever been before. And I think maybe a slight advantage when it comes to voting. Yeah. So if all the power, all the feminine energy, which I call the feminine ego, come in, and they're all going to the Democrat Party because of that issue, because the Democrat Party would let them stay up till 11 o'clock on the school night, you know, and the Republicans
That's beautiful. No. That's exactly, you just nailed it. You nailed it. That is
Obama because, I would give you free this, free that.
Yeah.
And don't matter who's paying for this. You know?
Right. Who cares? Yeah.
And never mind my history as being a Marxist that I wrote in my own book. You know, ignore all of that.
Yeah.
The media is going to go with me because now you're popular too. You know, and plus they've always been slanted towards the left anyway. But now Obama gave them a cover because nobody want to go against the so-called first African American as president. Nobody wants that smoke. So all of that was working in Obama's favor, and everybody you couldn't say no to him. You know,
the table was set
because he's trying to give everybody cake for breakfast.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. And that's the problem with welfare too. It's like, you know, sure, I'm going to take, anybody's going to take free money.
Yeah.
But, and I, you know, I'm not so hardcore. I don't think we shouldn't have some kind of social safety net.
You know, we need to take care of our own. But that had traditionally been the job of our religious institutions. They were doing that. It's not the job of the state. But even if the state wants to help, or we agree that the state should help, because we're the boss, not them.
Right. Exactly.
But we need to have programs for responsibility built in to where we can, create job programs that help people get off of welfare.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not what they want. They want more and more people on welfare.
Yeah.
Deliberately, and there is a plan for that. I mean, this is not by accident, and it's not just organic, and that, people want to be on welfare. People would prefer to be independent and working.
Of course.
But have you read much about the Cloward and Piven plan?
Of course.
Yeah. So we're victims of that Marxist thinking.
But the thing about the left, they're very patient and they're very cult-like, unlike Republicans and the right, because one, we got jobs to go to. We ain't got time to sit in front of TV or hanging out all day thinking of these things, how to be miserable in the greatest country on the planet. Right. We go to work, so, but you had them that they plotted, and plus this started way back at our inception. When you look at how the world was before America came into existence, the world was very tyrannical. It was monarchies. There wasn't any free people. Right. So then you have America come in and say, hey, we're going to write a whole new page. We're going to have the people going to create the government, not government create the people. Yeah. And the people come in and say, well, we tried socialism, which we did, and people just, there wasn't anyone to plant the grounds. Everybody wanted to eat off the production of the grounds, but nobody wanted to plant the seeds for the production. So we had to give people incentive.
That's human nature.
It's human nature. So we want to give people the incentive to not just eat the product, but plant the product first. So that was a whole new concept. And so we've been kicking everybody's butt ever since then, because we gave people the incentive to say, hey, we will allow you to keep the benefits of your labor.
Yes.
No one else did that. And that's what makes everybody mad all over the world. That's why you don't see Americanism highlighted when it comes to international policies from Europe. The EU or the UN, none of that. They're socialists or communists, not American, because America is totally different, and that will be counter to what they're trying to do. So we had to look at that.
Yeah, the monarchs, the rulers, the tyrants have hated the American experiment, ever since it happened. In fact, you can go back to Cecil Rhodes, who's done a lot of damage to the American experiment in the late 1800s.
Right. So when you allow that to come in after World War II, where the education system was handed over to the left after the Industrial Revolution. So now you see the educational system, not like what was before World War I, World War II, because they realized we had to destroy the concept of Americanism at the root. Yeah. Because
right there.
Up against us. Yep. So the school system, the education system, academia has been taken over by the left. And you see the fruits of that labor because they planted those seeds long ago.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's been a long-term project. And like you say, the left has, and maybe that's a disadvantage that, conservative independents have, is they are independent by nature and self-sufficient, and they're not acting in unison as a group, where a cult has that advantage of, just groupthink, and they act together, which is a powerful force to work against.
So. Plus, like I said, it's more money on the left, because everybody wants cake for breakfast.
Yeah. That's exactly it. So you believe that America is not inherently racist.
Not at all.
Yeah. So back me up. Why is it not inherently racist?
Define racism.
Well, there you go. First, you have to define a race. And do you do that by genetics or skin color or,
Yeah, but does anybody do that way though? First of all.
Yeah. So if you're going by how much melatonin do you have in your skin? At what point do you become black or
right? Exactly.
Right, or,
so you have to ask that question first. I mean, why has to be the fundamental of all intellectual conversations?
Right.
Why triggers everything? Why pushes away I can't? Why opens your mind up to a whole lot of concepts, differences, and everything is available to you when you ask why.
Yes.
Why is something, and like Kennedy says, why not?
Why, yeah.
Right. So we ask why did things happen. So when people come to me and that they will come off with this America is a racist and just whatever, like justifying racism, and why do you think that? How can it be when you look at the fact that slavery was forbidden in the United States after the Constitution, as early as 1787, the Northwest Ordinance, and then when the Republicans came into office with Lincoln, we had all of those Reconstruction amendments. Then the Democrats came into office, so the Northwest Ordinance forbid slavery in this territory, which is a huge swath. We're talking about Michigan, the Great Lakes, that area. And then they came in later and it was forbidden slavery to go west. You had the Missouri Compromise, which right now is why we had the Mississippi line, because the Missouri Compromise said we will allow slavery below, say, Louisiana and Missouri. So
right.
that's where the Mississippi line came in. But yeah, the Democrats come in after that, and they wipe all of that away. It says slavery for everybody. But
yeah, the Democrats.
Yeah, Democrats. So if people understand the story of Dred Scott, it was because Dred Scott married in a slave state and then went over to a non-slave state and argued from a slave state. My thing is, he would argue from a non-slave state, he would have won.
Right.
But his standing was in the slave state, saying he wanted to be free.
Right.
Of course, you're going to lose.
Right.
But again, the whole thing was that there was basically two Americas. You had America states who had slavery and America that had no slavery. So when you understand that, you got to also look at the fact that in this country right now, blacks as a whole have over $4.7 trillion in after-tax income. We have more blacks, millionaires, billionaires in this country than anywhere on the planet.
Right.
We have people making money on the internet who are black. We have blacks that's doing whatever they want to as long as they have their mind ingenuity to do it. No other country has that. So if you're talking about melanin, we got to look at why are the Asians doing so, awesome in this country. Asians are out earning whites.
Right.
So when you look at Asians, we look at Hispanics. Hispanics are like almost $5 trillion after taxes. That's why they're getting so much love right now, because they're not only bringing in a culture that believes in having babies.
Yes.
They're also bringing in money and revenue to fuel the system. So if you have Mexicans doing good economically, you have blacks doing good economically, even though we've been programmed, conditioned that we're not. Right. And you have Indians beating everybody economically. How can it be racist?
Right.
What are you grounded on?
There's no basis other than what CNN is telling you. You know,
And
if you just
and also what my own community is telling ourselves, because we are worst enemies. I mean, there's no one in white sheets and white hoods going to a black community and molding down 80% of our young men. There's no white person in white sheet and hood going to our homes and in the black communities telling us that we should have babies we can't afford. You know, no one's doing that. We're doing that for ourselves. No other community is doing that to their own. Whites aren't doing that. Hispanics aren't doing that. No. Asians definitely aren't doing that.
Definitely not.
We're the only one doing that to our own selves.
Well, it's been pushed and pushed so long. You've got generations of kids growing up with this narrative in their head that they don't know any better. And we've got so many, it's been pushed by the media for a reason. It's on purpose. They want to create that division, because if we're not working together, then it's easy to control the population, and we're not paying attention to the real problems that are going on, like the central banks determining the value of our money, and the fact that we're decoupled from the gold standard, so our money is worthless, and fractional reserve banking, and all the real evils that are killing our economy and keeping us divided. So that brings us to, this current election cycle. Man, I've seen so many black podcasters and influencers coming out in support of Trump. The Democrats have to be pulling their hair out, like, you belong to us. How is that possible? So, is Trump as racist as the media says he is, Tony?
This man grew up in New York.
Yeah, right. yeah, right.
Let's start with that. I'm not from New York, but I think there's a lot of colored people in New York. And he became rich in New York. And before he decided to come down the escalator, he had a lot of black politicians, black celebrities, Oprah, coming, kissing his ring. Inviting him to their events, having him on their shows, saying, "Oh, you're great, we're best friends," and all of this. And then when he came down the escalator, now he's a racist.
Yeah. So let's just explain that to me. Okay, if he is a racist, then you're a hypocrite, Oprah.
Yeah. I mean.
So which is it?
And Whoopi Goldberg,
oh my gosh,
you've been lying to me all this time.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, this man, again, I had this conversation with many people. This man has had every orifice searched for 8+ years and can't find anything. Biden, on the other hand, you ain't got to go far to find dirt on him. But nobody said that. Yeah. But now, if this guy was a racist, you can't find one black person nowhere to say something against him. But you could go back to the guy from Utah, Romney, and find someone that he beat up in elementary school. You can't find one black person to say anything bad against Trump. Come on now.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, like the only thing and I've seen like videos going back before he was president, even videos of black people, employees of his, that had nothing but praise for him, talking about how he would go out of his way to help them. He would talk to them. He would look them in the eye. Yeah. Unlike somebody like Hillary Clinton, who you hear, wait staff talking about how she screams at them and says, "Don't look me in the eye." Yeah. But the only thing that I've been able to find that people bring up is Trump took an ad out in the New York Times, I think, about there was a rape case that happened in Central Park, and there were five black kids that were implicated, and they were later. exonerated, I think, on DNA evidence. But the fact that he took out that ad, does that make him racist, or was he trying to get justice for obviously what it was a horrific event against this lady? But does that make his motivation racist in trying to get that crime solved? I don't know.
I think you're talking about Tawana Brawley, and I think there's a lot of smoke around that. And plus, I think Al Sharpton went out defense of her, and there was like songs of TLC, I think, had a song in her favor, and then it turned out that she lied. If we come up with the same one, so was he wrong? I mean, if that's the case, that she did lie, but again, even if he was wrong in that instance, there's no grace if he's wrong in one instance, but you have this other whole 99% of a lifetime, even though his father might have had a ticket pass, they have nothing to do with him, and then when you look at his family compared to the Biden family,
right,
compared to the Clinton family, I'm down with him in regardless to how he may be a quote unquote womanizer, but his children look rock solid.
Yeah.
And you could tell a lot about a person, how they raise their family.
Yeah.
You have to look at that.
I haven't heard any of Trump's kids writing in their journals about how he got in the shower with them.
Yeah. So, so you won't be outraged with something that you think a person is compared to a story that someone's daughter actually said happened by a father being a pedophile.
Right.
That's not a problem.
yeah, exactly. And then we have Harris, who just, I have no problem with a female president if we can get somebody that has integrity, that doesn't lie, and that is intelligent. And Harris is not that. And she's not even black, and that's what it's frustrating, because if it's convenient to the narrative, then she's black.
Mm-hmm.
But she's Indonesian.
Mm-hmm. Indonesian, Jamaican, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And
she bragged about that until the campaign, and then suddenly she's African American.
No, right. Well, first of all, there's a reason why our founders initially only allow people who own property to vote. Not to say women didn't own property back in the day, which was against a misnomer, saying that women didn't have the right to vote until the 1960s or whatever. Women always had the right to vote because it was up to the state to decide who had the right to vote. So blacks had the right to vote in certain states, this way as women. But when you look at how we've been educated, America is a masculine country. It's a masculine culture because we have a why not attitude, very protective, very demonstrative. If you step to me the wrong way, we were not meant to be a nanny state. We were not meant to be a feminized culture. So my humble opinion, we would never have a female president because we are not a feminized country. England did well with Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
But what other one has?
She's very exceptional. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that. And it's not anti-feminine. I love women. My mother was one. But when you look at the defaults, we are not a feminized country. We are ruining ourselves right now, trying to become feminine, trying to become socialist, which we are not. And real men like Trump scares them because they want to continue to be feminine, be more socialist. But Trump, he's not a feminine man. His beliefs, his point of view, his come froms is not from a feminine perspective. I got issues with Trump when Trump said that he never seen a moment to repent. I got an issue with a person who doesn't look to the Heavenly Father for guidance, because I got a question, where does he get his guidance from? That's my only issue, and that is a serious issue in my mind in regards to Trump. Other than that, I have no issue with him. You know, I like his masculinity. I like his posture. I like how he tells us what he thinks. Rather than
he says it like it is.
He's not perfect, but still, I like that about him, because real men, when you look at former presidents from back in turning the century, they will tell you to your face, "I don't like you, ma'am."
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah.
Like
it. Well, I think Trump is like, he brings an energy that's been long lost and people have been longing for, and even if they don't realize that, you know, we've been missing something, a backbone in our country, instead of bending to the will of, you know, people wanting just to eat cake and ice cream all day, or to other countries because of financial interests. And I look at Trump as, you know, like you say, he probably would not be in a perfect world or an ideal president. You know, for that, I would look to like Ron Paul or Rand Paul, who were never given a chance by the media. But
I think
Trump
it's views that kind of scary for us. You know, the liberal ideas. I think Ron Paul said that he want to do away with all foreign aid. I'm like, where you get that from?
Oh, really? Did he?
Yeah. I like. So we had no leverage, right?
Right. Well, I don't. That might be an issue where I would. I'm not a complete isolationist, but I do feel like we need to pull back our money and, you know, take care of home first, and we should not be involving ourselves in foreign conflicts. And in America, by policy, was isolationist until, I guess, World War One.
No,
or the Spanish.
Up until World War One, and then of course World War Two, and Japan dropped that bomb on us. I mean, not dropped the bomb, but they invaded basically Hawaii. So things changed. Because remember, FDR had to be pulled kicking and screaming to get into it, and people think he let Pearl Harbor get sunk on purpose to get us into the war. You know, so that's a lot of historians believe that.
Yeah. There is some shady stuff going on there too. I think they did have, they had advanced warning. They knew those planes were coming to Pearl Harbor. I believe it was allowed to happen. It needed to happen in order to pull America into the bigger conflict. You know, and that was a history changing thing. However, if you know, Hitler had to be stopped. But then again, I mean, if you want to go to the root of that problem, you go back to World War One and the Treaty of Versailles and the horrible treatment of the Germans. The first, they went way too far. They didn't give the people a chance to build up their economy, to earn the money, to pay those reparations back for the war in the first place. So, you know, and that you could go back once again to the military-industrial complex, the greedy contractors, you know, who had too much money to make. So if you're going to start, you know, picking bones, you know, you better go all the way back and
I think
read your history.
Yeah, that's the thing. The lack of historical education in this country for our own betterment is definitely severely lacking. We don't even know who we are. And now you have a generation who have never seen America win a war. You have a generation where monuments have been destroyed of our founders, both particularly here in the South, as well as just overall American history. You have now where being American is not seen as positive. You have kids growing up not wanting to wear the flag, not wanting to stand up for the flag. You have families, mostly led by females, not wanting to offend anybody. So
would help us if you offend somebody.
Right. So all of that is going to lead to a total evaporation of the knowledge of America, our greatness, and why we are exceptional. It's not about, pointing the finger at anybody. We just come at a time where we don't believe that man needs to be governing man.
Yeah. We need to take things back into our own hands, and remind the government that, they work for us, not the other way around. If this experiment in self-governance is going to work, I think a lot of your leftist, Marxist liberals are going to point to the problems we have as this is the problem with capitalism and independence. But I think they're really blaming the problems of communism on capitalism because it is a free and open system that allows people to, create their own wealth. It's also been taken advantage of by certain elites, moneyed elites, who have had other plans for us.
Well, they have to, because I think what COVID shined a huge light on anybody who's breathing or paying attention. If America wasn't America, and we had 50 independent, sovereign, semi-sovereign states, we would have had Canada. We would have had New Zealand.
Yeah.
We would have had Australia. But due to the fact that we have a governmental system where the people created the government, even though we don't remember that part, and that we do have 50 independent sovereign states, that's what could happen in California ain't happening in Georgia. So we had that, and people doing the crackdowns, and they saw, the people in California saw the World Series in Texas, people walking around free, chilling. They saw the Super Bowl, people in Florida jumping into the waters, chilling. They're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So that should have been a stark, a mirror up to your face. This is what could happen if we didn't have the Constitution. And what the Democrats tried to do in order to do the jurisdictions is tell people, I'm your boss.
Right. Right.
And a lot of people said, you are. And they just took it.
Yep.
We did have part of our country that still remember, we got the guns, and we remember our history, that you are not the boss, But if we forget our history, then we will more likely become Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
Yep. And that's why the schools are removing all the real history.
Yes.
From the textbooks. And man, I would have been much more interested in real history in high school. It was probably my least favorite subject in school. I hated history because it was boring and they weren't teaching us the real stuff.
Right. It was purposely done.
But yeah, it probably would have been my favorite subject if it had been real, because I've really started since high school. I've been digging into it and reading a lot. And thank God that my dad was a librarian, because I spent a lot of time around books.
Nice.
And I've been a nonstop reader since I was a little kid. And I think that's something that's, unfortunately lacking in a lot of people, particularly on the left. I'm not saying there aren't a lot of smart liberals, but I think they're misguided, and I don't think they're reading actual history like they should, because I think their thinking will change.
Well, what's that the Reagan said is something like, not that people on the left aren't smart or something. It's that they're always wrong. So
right.
It's like they don't read, they're not intelligent, but what they come out with is wrong. It's
right.
It's like, okay, so a woman could be a man, and a man could go into women's sports. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a good thought. It's just wrong.
It's just wrong. Yeah. It's just wrong. The right is called the right for a reason.
Right. I mean, water's wet. I mean, you can't change that. I mean, men are men. You can't change that. Women are women. You can't change that.
You can wish and think as much as you want. And hey, I respect your right to be delusional.
Right.
Just don't ask me to be.
Right. Don't ask me to affirm your delusion.
Yeah, exactly.
Process. Because
well
then we have a problem. I'll let you be you. Don't you stay
you. You do you.
We got
so true.
That, and that's a difference in America, any other country. England it's not England anymore.
Yeah.
Well, there, Australia, New Zealand, all of the Western powers, and that's what makes Trump's election so important. Because if we had another Kamala or Biden 4 years, we would have been no more. Because
absolutely. I think that would have been the final nail coffin nail.
People want to focus on who gets elected president. It's not. Trump can be president, but if he don't get a hold of the social elements, the pillars of our society, the schools, academia, the FBI, the pillars of our community, we're lost. It's not about politics. It's more about the social construct. That's the important thing. That's what the left concentrates on. That's what the left
the social fabric. And the left understands that very well. And we have to remember too that we can't just kick back and say, Trump, take care of it. That's the whole problem that, the Democrats say is like, you fix everything for us. It's like, he provides us a window of opportunity to fix things, and he will support, the measures that will take care of a lot of the problems if we are willing to participate.
We have to. We have to.
Yeah, we absolutely have to.
Trump won't put people in prison for their political views.
Right, exactly. As we are seeing actually happening
we have seen
a lot of
our years.
In our ally, Western other nations.
Yes.
We're seeing people being arrested for praying, for crying out loud in England. What kind of world?
King George got to be doing cartwheels in his grave.
Yeah. So, Tony, you're hopeful about a Trump presidency. What do you think? What do you see coming down the pike?
No Biden policies.
Let's just no Biden policies. How about that?
Say that. Because Biden. But Trump, what he's saying stuff. I'm looking at who he's putting in his cabinet. And I mentioned on my last podcast, RFK is a concern because Trump doesn't look at what your ideology is. Like Reagan.
Right.
Reagan was a staunch anti-communist person, and if you don't toe that line, he didn't have anything to do with you. So he had a strong pro-America position. That was his ideology. That was his worldview. Even though he was a Democrat, but his worldview was that. Trump's worldview is making the deal.
Yes, and from a business perspective, and to quote, who was it, James Carville? It's the economy, stupid. That's the big driver that allows us to succeed financially. But that's not the whole picture. We need to look at the morality and social fabric of our country. But what is your concern about RFK? Because I've been well, first of all, I loved his book. The Real Anthony Fauci, because I think he uncovered a lot of the corruption and what went wrong with that.
Well, you have to look at. I have an issue with RFK at the issue with the girl, a woman that he's trying to put as labor secretary. I think something blew up in her face. A video came back up about she was very pro. Gender manipulation. She was pro that, so that video is hot right now. And then
she was pro what? Sorry, the audio cut out. She's pro what?
Transgender.
Really?
pro giving children the authority or the ability to change their sex.
Oh man, well that's got it. Yeah, that's a
hopefully
red line.
that torpedoes her, but then it's a guy who he's trying to put in over the finances. I think he was George Soros' right hand man. So I'm looking at him, but RK, people have forgotten RK pre-COVID. RK was RK before pre-COVID. He comes from a Kennedy, so Kennedy's a very liberal. So now I like his points on the medicine, the pharmaceutical industry. You could like certain things about the individual position, but you got to look what is their come from.
Yeah, well, and you get into the whole, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and then of course the other corollary is, a tiger can't change his stripes.
Right. I think you got to look at, let's put him in a less affluent position. Let's not put him into a position that controls a quarter of the government and that has so much power in our everyday lives, as we saw during COVID. He may be struck right on 2 points, but what about the other 8?
Right. Well, I guess it's a matter of what does he have authority over?
Right. It's 25% of the government. I mean, and it goes to everybody's lives. So if he believes in green energy, which he does,
right?
How is that going to impact what I want to do? As opposed to, I don't believe in we are going to die in 10 years if I don't stop eating hamburger.
Right.
So if he had that fundamental belief that he controls 25% of government, and it's infused in a lot of everything things that I do outside of pharmaceutical industry, outside of is he going to allow for another crackdown? Outside of that.
Right. Well, that's
thing over here. Then again, Trump may be looking at just at making a deal, and just the fact that RK came to his aid, that he wants to reward this guy.
Right.
It's all well and good, but what about me, and what about his come from? What is his grounding belief structure? So that's what I'm looking at. All these people, a lot of them have been supporters of his, financial or political supporters, but a lot of them, from what I've seen, outside those 3, have been real solid, candidates. But those 3, you got labor, you got finance, and you got social.
Yeah,
that controls lives.
Yeah, that's very valid. So we do have to be conscientious, and we have to look at the whole picture.
Yes, the whole person.
Yeah. So, and I will be the first to say, if Trump betrays us, either through incompetence or intentionally, I'll be the first one to drop him like a hot potato. I won't support. But everything we've seen so far, it's and we're also put into a position of what alternatives do we have?
Yeah, that too. And plus, he's not for re-election. So I mean, it's just kind of it for him.
Yeah, and like you said before too, like not Biden policies, and I don't want to be like the Democrats and say our entire platform is like not Trump. let's talk about the actual policies. But when you say policies too, it seems like the past couple administrations, their policies have been all about that, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and affirmative action. How do you feel about DEI and affirmative action?
It's a socialist construct. Both of them.
Yeah.
Socialist communist construct. Again, people don't read, people don't understand, and a lot of blacks are waking up to the fact that DEI and just like affirmative action didn't really benefit blacks as much as it benefited white women, liberal
right,
women.
right.
But on top of that, when you look at, again, what's great about our country, I mean, the World Economic Forum, the UN and the EU may try to say they want to impose this grand government. But when you come to the shores of America and we got 50 semi-independent governments,
Yeah,
we're going to stop that. And,
yes, we need to.
And the ESG, all of that's being stopped at our shores because we have 50 independent sovereign states, and we have governors in those chief executive officers that still listen to the voters and understand that dog won't hunt here.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Those are being stopped. You know, ESG been stopped. The DI is definitely not for that. You heard that from the gentleman who's supposed to be the defense secretary. They ain't having that because it doesn't work if you want to
That's
be
exactly right.
a leader. Because you don't see China doing all this nonsense. You don't see nonsense.
Absolutely not.
Doing this nonsense. It's a group of countries who put together a union that still can't beat anybody. You know, the EU came together as a world, as a single unit to defeat the United States economically. They cannot do that because they still, at the end of the day, they have their own interests. You know,
right?
And when you have your own interests, you have it's hard to get everybody on the same boat. You know, we do that, but we have still elected representatives, still elected by us, and still voters, and still listen to the voters, and then go up to Capitol Hill.
Right.
It's opposite. They will give all the authority to the EU, and the same thing with the United Nations. But we understand that we have a constitution. It's still breathing. It is struggling. Yeah, but if you pick it up and you dust it off, it's a beast.
It is the most amazing document. I mean, apart from the Bible or the Ten Commandments, you know, if you want to talk about a document to govern people, you know, written by man. Yeah. The Constitution is
influenced by the Bible.
What's that?
Influenced by the Bible.
Influenced by the right. Yeah. And let's give credit where credit is due as well. You know, America was founded by Christians as a Christian nation, and the whole separation of church and state was so that the state could not infringe on religions.
Yes.
But not that religions weren't allowed to influence, you know, morality and the social fabric. Right. And the leftist, you know, liberal side does not want to acknowledge that all the freedoms and liberties that the Western world has enjoyed are owing to Christian moral values. Mm-hmm. They won't admit that. But you try to take that away,
but we
lose it all.
We're the only nation that has codified that.
Yes, right. And that's the other thing that people don't understand is they think that the Constitution is some kind of document that you can make changes to, and that changes your human rights or freedoms. Mm-hmm. It only codifies the understanding that we are all created equal, born equal, and we all have the same opportunities, which is something that I think that gets missed coming back to the affirmative action, is that people think that equality means, equality of outcome as opposed to equality of opportunity. Mm-hmm. Because some people we don't all want the same thing, and we shouldn't we shouldn't be forced to want the same thing.
Right. I mean, I always get the analogy, and again, the reason Karl Marx understood this, which is why he always gave the he always looked at defeating the West through the educational system. He always saw if you remove the child from the home and into the arms of the government, you ain't got to worry about that child anymore.
Right.
And when you look at social constructs like social justice or anything that looks at outcome instead of opportunity, then you got to look at, well, where do I see this working?
Right. Nowhere ever in history. But it's going to work this time.
No, nowhere. And it's funny when people want to hold countries up like Sweden and Germany, you got to look at, well, who is putting most of the money for their defense?
Right.
We are.
America. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah. So when I'm footing half the bill, which Trump is trying to shed light on, then yeah, you could have money to put to social welfare and months off from work. You could do that when you got worried about the military.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got China coming in and get ready to dominate y'all because you made that choice. And then you want to give up, nuclear energy for wind. You saw how that worked, Germany. It didn't work well.
It doesn't work.
No.
It's and I think that the people that are pushing the policy, and this comes not just from our elected leaders. This is coming all the way up from the World Economic Forum, and the elites who understand this and they want to break down the economy so that they can come. It's the old is it the Hegelian dialectic. They want to create the problem and then come offer the solution.
If people will stop back and look and see how's government working, operating, they're operating in that fashion. Bottom up, top down, and people get squished out. And the government goes by that playbook over and over and over again. People, if they understood that as you do, they could see this coming around the corner. Government sets up issues that they know they're going to have to come with this quote unquote solution. And it wins. People don't win.
Yeah. And it's, I do see people starting to wake up more and more. I see bloggers and podcasters like us coming out and, speaking the truth because we're actually reading history and we are making some headway. And I hope that enough of us, at least that small percentage, whatever it takes to, sustain our freedoms, will wake up before it's too late.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I'm crossing over into the 60s, and the young people, I think the Gen Zers are kind of waking up, but
yes,
they are not going to have our education. Mine in particular came through government education, when government education wasn't just about government. And I learned about the Constitution. I learned about the several states, 13. They didn't teach me about the Articles of Confederation. I didn't learn that on my own. But it gave me that emphasis. And I don't think that even Gen Zers, they may see that they don't want socialism to the degree that maybe Democrats are trying to push, but do they have a real view of what's the alternative that they already have? I mean, it could be like that farmer who's looking for gold and went all around the world looking for it and then realized he had it there on his land all the time.
Yes.
So just one of those things, how long is it going to take for this young generation, enough of them, to understand that what you seek is what you already have?
Yeah, well said. And we are just on the precipice right now. I've had a sense since I was a little kid that in my lifetime I would see some major global cataclysmic change or paradigm shift. I mean, the likes of which, bigger than the Industrial Revolution, bigger than the American Revolution, maybe bigger than the fall of Babylon. I mean, I think we are at one of those millennial points in history right now.
I don't know. Because things, I mean, we are so flush with information. And with AI coming out, it's hard to distinguish truth from fiction. Tupac had this song where he said that to the youth, the truth will look strange. So in many cases that is true, because people who do not know history will fear what history brings if they don't correct their errors when it circles back around again. And I think what happened after World War II with the Brentwood Accords, and that brought America up to be the currency of the world, but then brought the United States its economic superiority, is coming to an end, because what brought the Brentwood Accords and what brought the end to the gold standard, with the gold standard wanting to come back into favor, is going to mean the reversal of the Brentwood Accords, and therefore a lot of the so-called second and third world countries that are now producing everything for the world that the United States used to produce is going to create an economy that is going to be having the United States take a back seat. And with that, it's going to be a lot of economic favor and privilege and a lot of things that we have been taking for granted since Brentwood Accords, that people have never thought about a time where the dollar was only acceptable in the United States. I mean, I didn't experience that, but I can imagine that happening. And I think that's where we are headed to. And they are not going to have the same America economically as we would be so benefit to have. Because
we've been hearing talk about a multipolar world for a little while now. And we can sit here and place blame on, like Kissinger, who, ushered in the Chinese century. And then, we look at people who are warning us about exporting all of our industry, like Ross Perot warned about. You're going to hear a giant sucking sound of, dollars leaving the country. It's, water flows downhill. Ants are attracted to sugar. The economy and incentives work the same way. So if you set things up to make, everybody so spoiled that, now we can have iPhones for, pennies on the dollar for, much less than they're actually worth, because we're not, what's the price we pay for that? We have slave labor. We have people working in horrible slave conditions. I think part of the solution is, again, we have to look inward. We have to be more independent, and we have to be willing to maybe live with less. Suffer. What's that?
Suffer.
Yes. So one of my favorite sayings as a trainer, I tell people all the time, a little suffer makes you tougher.
Yep.
If we're not willing to, maybe get good at gardening again, food prices are getting so expensive, and maybe they should be, if you consider all the, there's potential damage to the environment that, the cost that we pay for monoculture and, mass production of, single crops. Is that really good for the soil? Whereas if we're willing to produce, more locally and sustainably, I'm not a big fan of that word sustainability, but in its true sense, then, if we're willing to work a little harder, maybe we can turn things around.
Well, I think the one thing that the left has done is detached us from who we are. I mean, because there's not one Chinese person who is being brought up in China doesn't know who Mao Zedong was.
Right.
I mean, they still demonstrably believe in the motherland. Russians to a degree as well, and they will fight for that. Japanese to a large degree as well. Israelis really believe in it.
Big time.
So they would leave America to go to defend their motherland.
Right.
Americans don't have that anymore. When you look at old movies, you have a sense, even with Joe Namath had this thing, something about something this un-American. I forget what he was referencing, but you can't have a person say that anymore because nobody know what America is. Is it apple pie? Is it family? Is it God? What is it? So what are you defending? A lot of our brave men and women went over to fight the evil Hitler dictator because they have an idea of what America was. What do our kids growing up believe America is? Is it worth defending? Are we going to fight? Are we going to stand up to it? That's what at the end of the day is going to determine our physical feature, because if our people in America don't know that it's worth defending, it's just a piece of rock.
Right. Well, that I think, and that's at the core of what I've been trying to get across to people, I think, and that's why I named the podcast Liberty Now, because we're defending our liberties and we're at risk of losing that, our most basic freedoms, our right of self-determination. And that's what we should all be crusading for and sharing, our common goal of live and let live. Let's work together to preserve our freedoms instead of trying to impose some top-down, control, or allowing, because we're so complacent, some central government to dictate, the terms of our surrender.
Right. Well, you can't have that when you have the majority that that values money and finance more than patriotism, more than family, more than children. And so when you have everybody, I mean, because it's crazy to me that we're actually watching a basketball championship that has Arabian country on its tagline. It's not like the American basketball championship. It's Dubai or Emirates basketball championship. I mean, 20 years ago, that I don't think that would have happened. That you have a national sports championship with the Emirates. Has some very serious gender issues.
Well, and that's part of the whole
championship. So people have lost what is America.
Well, and that's the thing is America has to have. You have to define it. There has to be a boundary, and the one world government wants to get rid of all those boundaries, get rid of those definitions, and I think that's a lot of what's behind erasing the definitions or boundaries between men and women. It's blurring all those lines and creating one world government under one central control. And I think the EU was a step in that direction. In fact, I've read that that was part of Hitler's plan in the first place, is to create a unified Europe and an EU. And they just want to continue that to the whole rest of the planet. And, if you want to look at who's behind that or who's in charge of it, who's financing it, you've got your minions like, George Soros carrying out the operations on ground level, conducting color revolutions and things like that. And then the bankers, the world bankers, and working through the UN. But we need to have, that sense of what is America and independent from the rest of the world. We have to have our sense of identity. Otherwise, we're just going to get washed out.
And it can't be about money. I mean, because right now we're for sale for the highest bidder.
Yes.
Our sports are being, it's a commodity now. It's not America. It's just, it's all about the dollars,
Right.
Because if it's our sport, we want to be trying to push it out to other countries, and definitely want to be having a championship. The Emirates,
Yeah.
I mean, whose idea was that? But
Yeah.
they don't say anything about it, and all they see is it's $1 in the financial gain. So yeah, why not pay a baseball player $900 million?
Right.
It's just, I mean, it's a great country, but there's a limit. I mean, from when you go from godlike to the other side, it's at some point you got to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that we need to get back to basic values and morals and look at that if we want to, maintain our freedoms and maintain a country.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, I
agree.
So we're at.
Yeah. I'm looking at the clock myself.
I want to respect your time, but also our listeners. And man, I could go on forever.
Yeah, sure.
And I would like to have some more conversations because there's so many topics that we could dig into.
I agree.
I think it's really enlightening, and I appreciate your insight. And thank God for people like you that are out there speaking the truth.
Same to you.
Thanks, man.
And also check out my site.
Where can people follow you, Tony? What's the best place to go?
Project Third Eye Open. That's project, the letter third spelled out, letter I, open. That's with the ed.com. Go to my site. You can check out all of my articles and video podcasts. And of course, I'm podcast as well on all your favorite platforms. I'm out there.
Okay. And you're on what video platforms are you on?
Video, I guess, Rumble. As far as video is Rumble.
Okay.
3 I open, number 3 letter I open, Rumble, and then of course Project that I open on all the other podcast platforms, Spotify, all of them.
Okay, awesome. And folks, make sure you go to libertynow.com. I'll have the show notes for this episode number 80. And it's a milestone for me too.
Excellent.
Been doing this. So make sure you check out Tony too, man. Really appreciate you speaking the truth. And until next time, be good, do the right thing, and keep asking questions. Have a good one.